There we go. Okay, so this is a really short presentation just to show how to quickly, well, why you might want to use QR codes and how to do it, or how to do it really easily. It's gotten much easier, and QR codes had been used for a very long time, but they really took off in terms of widespread use with COVID because it was a really nice, convenient way of sharing things over, well, in remote presentations and so forth. So they were first created in 1994, but then you needed special scanners and equipment to translate that into data. But they've been used a lot in the last few years. And basically, they're just images that are converted to text by a QR scanner application. And what really made these useful in terms of presentation use is that both Android and iOS phones can read them directly using the camera app, which means if you're doing a presentation in a large classroom, for example, and you want to share something with students, then it's really easy to put up a big QR code on the screen. They can aim their phone at it and directly access it. It's a great way of sharing resources, sharing surveys, questions, and other things. Pretty much anything online you can share that way. And so common uses are to share links to a poll. If you want to do a quick poll and it's not in a platform where students would directly have access to it, you just put up a QR code that will take them to the form, to the poll. I've sometimes used this in large classes to do a short quiz, where the quiz is done in often in Google Forms, for example, or polls could be done similarly, or if you just want some feedback on something. If you want students or people you're presenting information to do a survey, it's a great way of doing it. Some of you have noted that in some of our workshops, we've had QR codes to share the slides themselves or to share resources in addition to the slides. Now, in a Zoom session, you don't really need to do that because you could just drop it into the chat, but QR code is nice, especially if you're presenting in a mixed format where some people might be attending remotely and some people are attending in person. You can share a spreadsheet using this, or a document, or a form, or a video, or links to a video, and so on. Pretty much anything online is an easy way to be, but that you can easily share using a QR code. If there's some special software that you're using in an application for class or a conference presentation, you could just put a code up for people to download whatever software or application is needed. If, for example, you're doing a survey or something where you're using Socrative, or if you're using Mentimeter, or if you're using iClicker, and you want to share that, you want students or the people in the audience to be able to access those tools and put them on their smartphones, put up a QR code, let them scan it, go there, and then download the software. You can also, and again, we've done this on a number of sessions so far, we've shared copies of presentation slides using QR codes. So let's do it with this. So let's actually just go through. Here are the steps. And there we go. So now, but let's actually do that. That's probably the best way to demonstrate it. And I'd encourage you just to try doing this as well. So I'm going to stop from right here. And let's suppose I want to create a QR code to share these slides. So first, I'm going to go to the share button and decide how to share it. If I want to share it with viewer access only, then I just grab the link and copy it. If I want to share it with commenting, if I want people to be able to annotate it, you add the comment to right. If you want to give people the ability to edit a document. For example, one thing that sometimes people do is they'll put up a link to a spreadsheet where there's a series of columns and you want people to enter data about themselves, where they might enter their names, they might enter other details about themselves directly into the spreadsheet. I remember one of the first times I saw this was at a conference where The topic was on educational podcasts, and they had a list of several hundred educational podcasts in the spreadsheet. They shared a link with write access, editor access to people who were in the audience so that they could add their own podcast, their own favorite podcast to that list. It's a nice, easy way of giving access to something to a group of people. Although if you give people editing rights, they do have the ability to completely overwrite or destroy it. But fortunately, with Google Drive, you do have a history of those changes. So you can always go back and retrieve it or recover things if something gets messed up. Once I was sharing some information with a teaching assistant at Duke in the summer, and when the term ended, they went in and they deleted some of the information we had to see, the grade book and other things that we had kept some notes on, and I had to recover that from the trash. So, be careful sharing editor access. But in any case, I'm going to copy this link, but I'm going to do something just a little bit different. I'm going to grab that link and put it up here. And one of the things I like to do, and it's a really good way of sharing some information, this isn't directly related to the QR codes, but I'm going to replace everything from the edit after with the word copy. And so now I'm going to go to this page, and what happens is instead of giving people access to your original document, if you want to let them, if, for example, suppose you're doing something where you want to share skeletal notes for a presentation you're giving to students. You create your slides, the things you want to share, and then you get the share link, but you change that last word to copy. And then what happens is if the people scan the QR code for this, it'll give them this option to make a copy. Then they get their own copy of the document, which they can then annotate or fill in the blanks. So if you wanted students, say, to have a skeletal outline where you have part of your organization in the slides and you want them to flesh out the rest, this is a really convenient way of doing it. And then it'll go into their Google Drive folder and they can edit it themselves, and they have full rights to their own copy of it. Okay, in any case though, so if you click on it, we'll make a copy. But here's where you create the QR code. So you go down here, you click on the three dots up in the top right, you go down to the, let's change a little bit. Google does that pretty regularly. It's now cast, save, and share. And when you do that, you go here to create a QR code. And now we've got a QR code where you can either download the image or you could just copy it. And if you're working in Google Slides, copy works really well. If you're working in PowerPoint, I think it'll work too. But in some applications, you'll have to download it and add the image. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to add an additional page here where I just copied that image, and I'm going to, well, I already have one here, but but let me just do it again. I'm going to create a new slide. I'll duplicate the slide and then I'll get rid of it. And then here it's, here's what we do. I'm going to move this all aside. I'm going to put this in and just paste that image in. And there is the, I'm going to paste that image in. I didn't mean to do that, sorry. I'm going to paste it with a Control V, and there is a link to it. If you scan that right now, it will give you a copy of the slides with this extra slide in it. But what I typically will do is I'll create this QR code, and then I'll generally put a link in here. Now, I could put in the link here from the share, which is right here, but those links tend to be really long. So again, if you want people to have the option of typing it, if for example, they're having trouble accessing the camera or whatever, or they don't have their phone and they have a laptop, you could put this in, but this is not something that's going to be easy to copy. So what I would suggest you do in that case is go to something like tinyurl.com, and then this is one of my favorite because it lets you name it. You put in your long link here, you create a short one, and I'm going to put it in, and I'm just going to call this a junk link because I don't want to take up any, let's say in junk link 19. That's not a term that's likely to be used. I'm going to accept their cookies. It's getting close to lunchtime. And for some reason, this is giving me, oh, it's going through a Cloudflare verification to make sure that this is not a bot. Okay, so now we shorten the URL. And now what happens is if you copy it, you can go back to your slides and put in that link right here. And so instead of having this long link, you put this in. And that's much easier for a student sitting at a laptop or, a faculty member or someone at a conference to type in something like this, tinyurl.com, and then whatever term you put there. And you can always pick terms that are relevant for the presentation that you're doing. And that's pretty much it. I'm going to actually get rid of this slide because this was a junk one. There we go. And so that's how I created this in the first place. And here I did put in a link because since this is a Zoom, since most people are coming in over Zoom, since most people are coming in over Zoom, what I would probably do is I would put it into chat as well. And the chat is over on this screen, and these are the slides for this session. So that's pretty much it. Any questions? Let me stop the share.
John, I have a question. This is Sandy.
Sure.
So thank you for doing this. I'm sorry I came in a little late. We had I didn't do it, but one of my colleagues did a QR code for like our open house during, when we do all the tabling stuff. But it didn't work, and she later said, "Oh, it expired or something." So do these expire like when they're free or you're not paying for something?
I have never had one expire. With a tiny URL, I've never had it. The QR codes generally are good indefinitely. I suppose they all go back to some company that is providing them. And what the QR codes does is it basically is a database that connects the images to the text. And it may have been a company that was generating QR codes that went bankrupt or disappeared. What we just did is created it using Google, and Google is probably not going to be going out of business for at least the immediate future. So that's the only way I could think of.
Well, and that's what I'm thinking. I don't think anybody went in through Google and did it. So that was interesting to me. So that's probably the way to do it because, oh yeah, we thought we were so cool and we had all these, we didn't do handouts. We had QR codes and like none of them, I was there that day and I'm like, I didn't make these and everybody's scanning them and nothing works. I'm like, oh, great. So,
yeah.
Okay.
I've never
had
seen
that happen before too.
You did?
You have had it happen?
Yeah, we made posters during the pandemic.
Yeah.
To put outside the compass doors.
Ooh, and that's more costly because with
slides, well, we just made a new one, cut it out, and pasted it on. Like we worked through it, but it expired. I haven't done one in a long time, so I haven't had that issue. So I don't know if it's, but knowing if you do it through Google, that's helpful.
And what we used to have to do is take the URL, go to some website, have the URL generate the image, wait a little bit of time if it was a free one, and then download it and then paste, then embed it. But with Google, it's so simple. You just go here. Let's say, this was.
I never knew you could do it through Google like that. So that's good to know.
Yeah, it's just so convenient. Well, here's our website. Here's the schedule. All you have to do is go there, go down to CAS. I should update that. It's now CAS.
You got to share your screen.
We can't see.
Oh, yeah. Let me share that. I'm using the other screen, but let me share that screen. I should know that. There we go. Okay, now I think, can you let me move that out of the way. Can you see it now? Can you see the schedule?
Yeah.
Okay, so what you would do then is just go to the three dots, you go down to Cast, Save, and Share again, and you just go to create QR code, and there it is. And you can download it or you could copy it however you want. And if it's something in, I believe in PowerPoint or Word or in Google, you can just copy the image and directly paste it right in, and it's there.
I don't think I would ever know to look at a cast share and whatever that thing was.
Yeah,
So,
yeah.
so that's the trick right there.
Yeah, I never knew that either, so.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it used to be simpler, but they changed it, because what did I say before? Okay, now let me update it. So was cast, save and share. I've updated the slides now. So if you have the slides and you click on that URL to get your own copy, that will give you an updated copy that will now have the correct term. Sorry about that. The last time I had tried this, when I put the slides together, it was just save and share. So this is a short session, but the nice thing about it is really easy to do. And whenever I give conference presentations, especially where some people are online and some people are, in the stadium, in a theater or whatever, doing it this way, putting up a tiny URL so that people can type it in, and putting up the QR code for people with cameras makes it so much easier to get material out there. And if you're going to put together slides, that you want people to take some information with, you might as well share it with them, because otherwise, I know I've gone to some really good sessions and meant to keep track of everything that I did there. And then, a week or two later, you forget a lot of details. But if people have a copy of the slides, they can always go back and look at them. So.
Yep. Gathering
Thanks.
business cards so that you can email the people. It's much easier.
Yeah.
Thank you,
John.
Thank
Any
you.
Noticed
other
when
questions?
when I signed in, I saw that I needed to type in my Google Docs password, username, all that business. Is authentication like for Brightspace required as well, or when you have to log into Pearson, Alex, any of those other online systems that require a password, will the QR code take that into account, allow the students to type that in? There's not going to be any kind of error, any kind of discrepancy along the way, is there?
That depends on how their systems are set up. I generally would put in link to things that I've shared publicly in Google, or either they'll be shared to anybody or people with a link if it's a YouTube video, for example. If it's a YouTube video, they're generally for the public. So I haven't really tried to link to things behind a password. So I don't know if that would work. So if you wanted to link to something in Brightspace, I suspect, people would still have to authenticate, because I don't think there's a way within our classes. Well, let me rephrase that. I know Brightspace has a capability of sharing things broadly, but I don't think that's enabled in SUNY's instance of Brightspace. So, and that's partly because of all concerns about student privacy and about data and other things. So I think if you try to link to something in Brightspace, people would still have to authenticate, and usually the link would break down at that point, I'm pretty sure. Or similarly, if it's in, one of the publishers' things, you can get to the publisher's website by sharing a QR code, but I don't think you can link to things that are beyond the login, unless the people are already logged in, and then it should take them there.
Yeah, so you wouldn't suggest necessarily that I say link to something on Pearson through a QR code, would you? Because we always try to get the students to make sure they go into Pearson through Brightspace, not through the Pearson login website itself or anything like that. So
yeah, I generally just have them do it through Brightspace, have them log in and connect through there and have the links that way, because that way they're automatically authentic. Once they're in Brightspace, the authentication is established. Because otherwise, if you have students going to Pearson or publishers' websites without going through Brightspace, they often will forget to go back into Brightspace and do other things that you have in there for them. I once had, one of the first times I taught online, I think it was back in 1997, 1996. I I had a course with all sorts of materials from the publisher in a much simpler form back then, because the web wasn't quite as developed. But one of the things that happened was I had a student go to their website and do all of their self checks or their learning checks there, but never actually doing any of the required items that were, at that point, it was back in Lotus Notes before we moved to Angel. So they thought they had done the whole course, and I had not seen them ever log in, and they had not responded to emails or anything else. And they were really surprised at the end of the semester, just because they had never checked their emails, that they had a 0 in the class because they hadn't done anything. So you probably don't want them going directly to the publisher site. You want them to be in the course where anything that you put up there, telling them what they need to do, deadlines, and anything else is visible to them. Any other questions on this?
Dinosaur.
Well, speaking of dinosaurs, you can always tell the Google ones because they do have the dinosaur in the QR code. So, but again, they're pretty stable. I've never had one expire, and it's so simple to create. I tend to put them on any slides I want to share, unless something's really awful. But if you put in the copy thing, and that includes a link to the copy, what I'll tell people if I'm still developing the slides, because it's an early presentation before a big one, to go back in a month or two when I finished it, click download a copy, and then I'll get the updated version of it. So. Okay, any other questions? Okay, well, thank you for coming. It's a great tool. Try it. Thanks.
Thanks very much. Mm-hmm.
Bye.